we also learned that you can't build one product demo for everyone. Like you need to set up the right messaging in the right length, in the right context, depending on whether they're top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Too many founders actually try to spray and pray with the same messaging and the same product demo and the same content, and that rarely works. The other big thing, I think, as a byproduct of that that I picked up and learned was um, honestly, too many founders overanalyze and over research and overthink before they act. The biggest thing you can do, especially now with all the noise, is have a bias to action and just get out there because nothing disproves your theory better than actually talking to 10 customers and them telling you this is shit.
Welcome to the Founders Cookbook podcast, where B2B founders share the secret recipe behind their success. Today, I'm joined by Joseph Lee, co-founder and CEO of Supademo, an AI-powered platform that lets anyone create interactive product demo. So, Joe, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Patrick. Yeah, I'm doing well. First call of the morning. I'm ready to go.
That's nice. I think we have a really interesting episode today because your journey as an entrepreneur is really atypical, and I think there will be some interesting story, I think, today. So yeah, let's jump right in. So for listeners who don't know you yet, could you introduce yourself and share a bit of your background?
Yeah. My name is Joe. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Supademo. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I'm originally from Seoul in South Korea. That's kind of where I grew up. And then my family ended up moving to Vancouver when I was young. And I think Vancouver is really when I kind of caught the entrepreneurial bug. And, I think growing up in a family that didn't, really have a lot, um, I was always enamored with the concept of like building something from nothing and being able to get $100 here, $100 there, and use that to kind of fuel whatever I wanted to do next. So yeah, I'd always been very entrepreneurial. Did a lot of projects growing up. I guess my first kind of pseudo company was when I was maybe 14 or 15, where I would buy and sell electronics. So I would arbitrage electronics, buy in bulk from people on Craigslist or different retailers, and then I would meet up with people in shady parking lots and random shopping malls, and yeah, make a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. That ended up fueling a couple other endeavors across like building my own clothing brand, doing my own consulting business, building websites, all the way to doing organic soy candles. So we made like soy candles from our parents' kitchens and sold them in like farmers markets. We imported the wax from China and then kind of did all the scents ourselves. And ended up going to university, studied computer science and business. 2 years, 2.5 years into the program, I ended up working on a project with my co-founder at the time, who I went to high school with, and it was basically a concept where we wanted to democratize access to fishermen and help fishermen sell direct to consumer, because through his experience of spending summers in northern Canada, he realized the seafood industry is very opaque, very antiquated, a lot of different middlemen, and fishermen were you know forced to sell their catch for pennies on the dollar to all these
Mm.
brokers. So we were like, hey, let's let them just sell direct. Airbnb is big, Uber is big. It's, the dawn of marketplaces. So we decided to just put our heads down and build. And from there, yeah, it was like one thing led to another. And we raised funding and got into Techstars and had employees. And sure enough, yeah, by the time I was at least 20, I ended up having to drop out of school and build a venture full time. And then, yeah, from there, I've been on the entrepreneurship track since it's been about 10 years.
Whoa. It's like starting at 14, arbitraging electronic. Yeah. So where did you get that entrepreneurial mindset? You said that you get that bit when landing at Vancouver, but is it also coming from your family education, that entrepreneurial mindset?
Um, I think a lot of it was resources were scarce when I was growing up. So I was just hyper fixated on the need to like provide for myself, and maybe this was not rooted in reality because I had a loving family and we had enough to put food on the table, but I was just hyper fixated with like financial freedom and building a future for myself and like pulling our family into like financial success. And I think that fueled me to, you know, watch shows like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank and different kind of, business oriented shows. Not with the intent of I want to create something, but I think that's just where my interest naturally kind of progressed
Mm.
into. And, like all other entrepreneurs that end up scaling their business, I think I didn't jump into it thinking, "Hey, I wanna be a founder," or "I wanna be an entrepreneur." It just kinda happens. And I think it's if you go into it thinking, "Hey, I'm doing this because I want the badge of being a founder or a startup, entrepreneur," it very rarely works out.
Yeah, yeah, you will have a hard time.
Yeah.
I think which is really interesting is like at 14, you doesn't think about, uh, arbitraging electronic or, you know, like crafting candles at home and selling them. So, but it's like you are getting those like sales skills and, finding the needs from the market really early, which is really interesting because it's like starting a venture at 20, dropping out from school and starting that venture that was Freshline. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
And I want to pick up, starting at Freshline because that's Freshline that led basically to discovering that pain in the market, and that led to founding Supademo. So could you
yeah.
just explain a, a bit of what you experience at Freshline that led to Supademo? I'm interested in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we first started, going from the, helping fishermen sell direct, it eventually became a seafood marketplace connecting fishers as well as seafood companies to restaurants. So you can imagine like Uber for seafood. That's what it was. We helped
Yeah.
coordinate the logistics of getting fish from point A to B to C. Restaurants get fresher seafood, traceable seafood at a more affordable price. And for a while it was working. We had grown to millions in revenue. We had grown out the team. We had a swanky office. And then, like everyone else, we got hit in the face with COVID. COVID came. Essentially, the entire supply chain had shut down. Restaurants had fully shut down in Canada. Nothing was open. We essentially had to reinvent ourselves from the ground up. And in that process, we ended up having to pivot not once, but probably 4, 5, 6, 7 different times, where we became a home delivery service for like premium ingredients like caviar and uni and things you couldn't get at grocery stores or on Instacart. And then we pivoted again and pivoted again. And eventually we became, an e-commerce and operations platform for food distributors and wholesalers. So it's essentially the people that we were competing with. They came up to us and they said, "Hey, um, we're short staffed. The pandemic is happening. We want to start doing home deliveries, but we also want to start, taking orders from restaurants and digitizing our experience, like through just like the web, instead of taking orders by pen, paper, fax, phone, and doing picking and packing via clipboards." But all of these like platforms that are out there, they're not purpose built for the way like food works, like steak, like selling produce, selling seafood. And you guys seem to be the experts. Can you help us? And so we ended up doing that pivot and went from a marketplace to a B2B SaaS. And during that process of making the jump, our sales motion completely changed. It was less about, supply and demand dynamics or knocking on doors to get chefs on board. It was all about how do we actually like demonstrate our product and show why it matters. And to explain that to maybe an audience that wasn't as tech native, it was very difficult. Our marketing language didn't stick. They just didn't get that aha moment. But when I did like a screen sharing session, not unlike this, and I had it be more of an interactive guided session, that's when the owner at the distribution plant or wholesaler plant was like, "Whoa, I get it. I need this. How do I get started?" Um, and so that was kind of the aha moment where I'm like, okay. Uh, there has to be a better way to demonstrate value and show off the features of your product in a more interactive, engaging, kind of do by learning kind of way, rather than videos. And yeah, and that was kind of the idea behind Supademo. And then, one thing led to another. When I left that company, started iterating, built the first MVP, first concept with my co-founder, and then it kind of grew and grew. And here we are today. Yeah, 200,000 users later.
Nice, nice. Yeah, really interesting story. So, yeah, it's every time I think when, especially for B2B SaaS or for, product that could be either disruptive or either new, and you are addressing like a market which is stuck in the past, basically. No, nothing wrong about that, but it's, yeah, how you can find that essence and just, push that on into a landing page. And sometimes, yeah, you need a product demo. And I think showing things, as we say, an image, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but a demo is also, worth 1,000 picture, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But, yeah, I totally get it. So when you decided to leave Freshline and started building on the MVP of Supademo, how did you approach the early growth? Did you lead with a really rough MVP and starting showing that MVP to early customer, or did you
Yeah,
wait for just, I'm interested, how did you approach that really first and critical phase of starting a company,
yeah,
tech-led company?
yeah. So I think it's interesting because I think the ebb and flow of like what is acceptable as an MVP is very much different back then versus what it is now. I think the bar is much, much higher. People have less attention than before. So back then, I think the whole notion is, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product that you shipped out, you've shipped too late, right? That was the conventional wisdom, and you had to move quickly. And so we were lucky in the sense that I think we were at the tail end of, you know, buyers still being flexible and willing to, accept and play with like rougher products that were rough around
Mm,
the edges. Um, as long as it helps serve their job to be done or solve their problem. So for us, it was all about how do we get to like the minimum threshold where there is product delight and it's useful. And it does exactly what the user is trying to do in the simplest, easiest way. And then let's ship that. Let's forget about all the other bells and whistles. So our first version was only screenshots, no HTML, no video, no voiceovers, no animations, just screenshots stitched together with automated text steps or annotations that we would place on the screen as people kind of
mm.
click through. So very, very simple version. But it worked because I think it was very easy for people to ascertain and understand because of the product simplicity. And from there, it was all about just shouting from the rooftops. There is no tried and true way to get 100 customers. Every business is different. Every industry is different. So for us, it was let's go to where our like initial ICP lived. Our initial ICP being indie founders and indie entrepreneurs and marketers. That was places like Indie Hackers, Reddit, different communities, and just adding value first, making it easy for them to say, yes, I will try it. So things like creating demos for them, white gloving their onboarding experience, making the trial fully free and ungated without a credit card. So a lot of different tactics went into getting our first few customers. And then obviously it starts to snowball after that.
Okay, so how, at the start, how big was the team? It was only you and your co-founder that started the MVP and started to get into Reddit and to found and identify those indie hackers, entrepreneurs who were solo building. I don't know the size of your first 100 customer, but from what I understand, it was really small company size at the beginning.
Yes, well, we didn't have any money, so we didn't have money to hire people. So it was very much myself and my co-founder, hand to hand combat, and I think an important thing to stress and note is the ICP that you start with doesn't need to be the ICP that you scale with over time, right? You need to set up and find your niche and get your foot in the door. And that was for us, indie hackers again, and founders that were a lot more receptive to trying out new tools and adopting something brand new and taking a bet on people, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't mean we didn't have ambitions of going enterprise and working with the Siemens and the HPs and Microsofts of the world, because that definitely was. But we knew that to get to those folks, we would have to take essentially step function leaps in both product capabilities, brand recognition, security, um, customer base, a lot of different things, right? You can't just shortcut your way to that. So you started with one and then you slowly, build out from there.
I mean, that one thing that is resonating with me is what you said about your, you found the ICP that were also keen to try new products, and because there is less friction into trying a new product and than maybe a bigger client which is trying a new product, okay, but then deploying that product internally is another story because you have process, you have teams,
Yeah.
etc. So it's another thing. So I think, yeah, that's the right approach. Like, I always see that, the entrepreneur game, like really like a game. So you need to level up. So you don't go directly to the, level 50 boss. You start, like going step by step. So yeah, I really like how you frame that the ICP you start with is not the ICP you end up, scaling
Yeah.
with. So yeah, really, really
That's
interesting.
and you bring up a good point there, Patrick, because I think especially now, first impressions matter so much, and you don't have an unlimited number of shots on that, right? So when you're trying to win over a key decision maker at a large company, don't assume that you can basically pitch them today and then pitch them again 3 months from now, and they're going to give you the same level of attention and consideration. Oftentimes, you only have that one shot, so you only have so many bullets in the chamber. You wanna shoot it when it's the right timing, right? Maybe that's a bad analogy, but yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think it's a good analogy. Yeah, 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 definitely. Um, One question that I always ask is, what did you learn while in really in the early phase, while showing that first MVP and getting your first customer and client feedback? What did you learn about the market or the product
Hmm.
that was not obvious at the beginning for you?
Well, initially, I think we had very much focused on like the internal and like onboarding use cases. So like, how do we explain the product and get them to understand the value after they already know about it? But what we realized, the demand for product demos were uh, a lot larger in scope, like pre-sales, to even get them interested in the first place. And through that endeavor, you also learn that you can't build one product demo for everyone. Like you need to set up the right messaging in the right length, in the right context, depending on whether they're top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Too many founders actually try to spray and pray with the same messaging and the same product demo and the same content, and that rarely works. The other big thing, I think, as a byproduct of that I picked up and learned was, um, honestly, too many founders overanalyze and over research and overthink before they act. The biggest thing you can do, especially now with all the noise, is have a bias to action and just get out there, because nothing disproves your theory better than actually talking to 10 customers and them telling you this is shit, right? Rather than you sitting behind a keyboard and emailing a few people, or, building one more feature before you go live. So I think um, it's like playing golf. Like whether you're good or bad, you're gonna have to hit the ball, right? To like see if you're good or not, you got to hit the ball. And too many people are on the sidelines, teeing up, putting their glove on right, making sure they have the right driver. Like you just got to get out there and go.
Yeah, I like that analogy, and it's so true that is for me, it's like really finding the right balance between your MVP is like, good enough, or at least it captures what you want to solve as a problem, but also you will never get so much feedback from getting out there, as you said, and putting that product in front of potential customer and early adopter just to get the right feedback and also to steer the roadmap. Maybe there is some feature that you really want to have on the product, but when discuss with clients, it's like, we don't care about that. So yeah, it's like really being hands-on. And I think that's one thing I'm hearing often is get your MVP out as soon as possible, get that product in front of customer and get the early feedback, and don't wait to have something that is really polished and with a lot of feature. Maybe lead
Yeah,
with the core feature, and I think that's the takeaway from what you said,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
nice.
And it's now it's minimum valuable product instead of minimum viable product, right? So it does need to be valuable, but I think the point that you stressed there, I think that's important to highlight is scope. Make sure you don't have scope creep. Keep it really narrow and specific to like one core problem that you want to solve, and do that better than anyone else and do it exceptionally. And then obviously move on and build and iterate.
Nice. Um, One thing I wanted to follow up on is interesting is, so basically at the beginning you went onto community, look for indie hackers, get your first 100 customer, and then where was the pivot when you changed that ICP or you upgraded that ICP? So what were the signals for you that led you to the decision, okay, we need to now we are ready to hit, that new market or that new ICP. We have the product that is ready for that. So what were the signals? Was that like
Hmm.
something natural that led you to that? Or it was really, okay, we need to have, a plan to hit that new market?
No, I think it's very much organic, right? You want to listen to the pull, like the natural signs that are coming from the market. So I don't think it was just like this one inflection point where you said, oh, suddenly we have all these different ICP members coming in. But I think it was gradually as we were building in public, as we were shouting from the rooftops about why Supademo mattered, as we executed like day in and day out consistently, just naturally, um, you build up more of like that brand eminence and brand identity to the point where somebody from a larger company just lands on your website. It's like, oh, I've actually seen this before. I've had a startup pitch me their idea using a Supademo, or I've seen their LinkedIn post, or I've seen their YouTube video. And they end up booking a demo and then they start using it. And then other companies in that vertical or adjacent space are like, whoa, okay. HP is using this like product demo for their like landing page or their help docs or their onboarding. I should try it out. And then we make it easy for them to learn about Super Demo. So I think it's a natural shift. I think for us, a lot of that came from just seeing the natural demand and organic demand build up from people that wanted to like book a demo or just for signing up, and trying to invite other team members from their team. So more teams were going from solo player to multiplayer, and multiplayer in different departments. So one person in support would have a great experience and they would tell their person in onboarding, hey, you should try to use this for like async onboarding or reinforcing key topics. And then they would send it to sales, and sales would be like, oh, I want to try this for post sales follow ups or post demo follow ups or outbound. And marketing would want to use it on their website. And then it naturally spreads. And that's kind of like the core defensibility and power of something like Superdemo, where the product may be simple in nature, but I think the distribution density and the number of users that bring in other users, that's something that's not easy to emulate by vibe coding and unlovable and getting to 200,000 users, right?
Yeah, so it's interesting because you reach for me, and how I hear it is like you reach a point where all the seed you planted in terms of marketing effort and doing things manually and reaching out to those community, getting the product on product hunt, etc. Now
Yeah.
it's like really like the pure organic marketing you can reach as a founder is having that product being, spread across an org or spread across a market, because every client see that, oh, my competitor, or I saw a subcontractor or a client or, a partner using that product to show demo. I'm feeling left behind, and I need to get on that new product, because yeah, it seems to be the way to show product. And yeah, I think that's something, you know, you can say that when you reach that kind of organic marketing, organic growth, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's really
But
cool.
that you also can't shortcut that, right? I think a lot of people think it's like an overnight success or you get lucky,
Yeah.
but I think, like you mentioned, you have to plant so many seeds, and I think that's kind of also the difference between the go to market game plan, like in the past versus today. I think before, the conventional wisdom was very much like pick the one channel that works for you and just scale with it, right? Pump money into it and grow it. But I think that leaves you with a lot of risk, especially nowadays where it's actually more about being omnipresent, right? How are you present in like all the channels to a base level where, yeah, like I mentioned, when somebody lands on Supademo, you want them to have that experience of, oh, I've heard of this. So you inherently trust it more. You inherently favor and have a bias towards it when you're evaluating 3 or 4 different solutions, and they just yeah, tend to lean towards you because you're a familiar platform that they've heard of multiple times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's totally true. So, did you consciously invest into that? Because we are talking about, marketing, but behind that, I think the foundation, as you said, is as you mentioned, is branding. How you
Yes.
how you build the brand, because now with web coding and the tools, and we know that, anyone, basically, not anyone, but it's the bar raised, and you can build like internal product, and you can go to market really with kind of okay product, if we can
Yeah.
say that, like a really rough MVP working.
Yeah.
But I mean, the a business asset for me, and I'm a big advocate of that, is you can't replicate or you can't copy a brand.
Yeah.
And a brand is, and I was just curious, did you consciously invest in the branding as a branding asset for Superdemo, or it was like a consequence of your action and what you did along the way?
We did invest in it from the get go because branding has always been important. I would say it wasn't. We didn't invest in it because we knew AI was going to shift the landscape in this way. We did it because the core, thesis is people like to buy from people. People like to follow the stories of founders and the humans behind the company rather than the company itself, right? So by sharing transparently the lessons, the successes, the tactics, and things happening within the company, our goal was to build a level of like familiarity and relationship beyond just the company name. And by doing it from the very beginning, now we now have like a full timeline and footprint where people can say, oh, these guys have been super consistent in sharing out their story and trying to add value beyond just trying to sell me their product. And you can just look at the timeline of what we've done and say, they're not just doing it right now in a disingenuous way because they want to ride the AI boom. This is like the core branding thesis behind the company, right? And that builds trust.
Uh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the right way to put it. I think it's all right. And question, how now with a new product, a new model, a new feature, coming out, like every single day, even multiple times a day now. How are you, you know, filtering between what is important for the product and the company and, against all the noise and all the things that will, pop up, be viral for 1 week, 2 weeks, and then, you know, be completely dead in 2 weeks. So how are you filtering, just to inject that into the roadmap? Because from what I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's like you need to open up the product to be more like, integrated into the agentic or AI system. Like, but how do you choose to write on to work on the right feature, the right stuff, that you don't become, useless, or
Yeah.
just, a thing of the past quickly?
It's hard. Yeah, there's no guiding principle on it, right? So I think it's always been the job of the founder to understand the trends and what's going on in the market. And I know pretty much like every trend. I am on X, like looking through doom scrolling, and it can be scary, right? Because there's like a new
Yeah.
thing launching all the time. It seems to completely shift and change the landscape of the startup ecosystem. But you got to realize a lot of them are loud and have a big facade, and the facade is very different from how the product actually works and how it's adopted. And a lot of people honestly don't understand and look past how hard it is to get change management going. You can have all these incredible tools and incredible processes, but how do you actually get a collective of people to change their habits and change their process and adopt those and make that the default? That doesn't come overnight, nor do they want to change it every 2 weeks, right? There might be a better product out there for us too, for different use cases. But if we've just become a power user in a particular tool 3 months ago, and we've invested the time, the resources to train, onboard, and integrate that into our process, I don't care if a tool is 20% faster. The cost for me to drop what I have and pick that up and distract away from the roadmap I have is actually far greater than the 20% gain that I'm going to have. So I think it's when I think about the tools out there, I think it's like, yes, it's the job of the founder to understand what's going on in the market. You need to be the sieve and the filter to understand what's important and not important to the fundamentals of your business, and ask yourself, does this actually amplify the core value proposition or the job to be done that I'm delivering out to my customers? And are my customers ready to shift and change and adopt at the pace that these tools are coming out in? Right. I think that's a key consideration. So for us, like it's when we think about like what to add, like you mentioned, I'm very much a believer in making your tooling interoperable, right? So we have our MCP, where people can do everything you can do on Supademo, personalizing demos, creating tracking links, analyzing analytics. You can actually do that just on Claude, natural language. You can just like make all the changes you want, generate voiceovers, animations. We think that is the future because both humans and agents can create demos, personalize demos, share demos at a more scalable and easy way. And that supports our core thesis, right? Same thing with AI demo agents, but there are also things that are cool and fancy on paper, but it's a little bit more murky in terms of how does it actually impact the core customers that we serve. Yeah. But you got to be listening. You got to always be listening and always be on and
Yeah.
asking yourself that question. Does this actually make sense in our roadmap?
Yeah, it's like, doom scrolling Twitter and bookmarking. Oh, that seems interesting. I need to read that, or I need to check that, and then you end up with a lot of bookmarks that you don't remember why you bookmarked that. So yeah, it's like, it's also the same filtering, also what you consume, and I really like the frame you've put on. There may be a new tool or a new feature that is maybe more efficient, 20% more efficient, compared to the cost and the time I will invest to change maybe what is working well and delivering result today. Maybe the balance is not worth it. And let's maybe revisit when the arbitrage between, okay, now we get that feature. Yeah, that makes sense maybe to invest. And as you said, for the team, like changing the process or the tool every 2 weeks, it's like, yeah, you can't have that. You can't
It's
have that. It's
painful,
like,
right?
yeah,
And that's why, like, I don't really believe in this whole core, like, all SaaS is dead. And I think you're going to replace a lot of SaaS. But I think maybe for like an indie founder who's really optimizing their expenses, okay, you can build all these custom tools specific for yourself. But no sophisticated enterprise that is like laser focused on their mission wants to divert their attention and resources away from that
yeah.
mission to save $100 a month on that. It's like a non-expense. It doesn't matter to them, right? They're not trying to save that, right? And it's actually a waste of time for them, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's so true. Right. We are getting already ahead of the time. So I will ask one more question. I always ask because I really like this one. It's if you could go back in time, what would be the advice you would give to yourself back then? The one advice, you only have one advice to give to yourself when you started.
Um, I would honestly say be extremely intentional about like the market on and the opportunity that you're going after. When you're first starting a company, you can be naive and want to like just jump in blindly and like dive right in and start building. But I think I very much believe in that like conventional wisdom of market trumps founders every single time. If you have a mediocre founder in an amazing, fast-growing market, you're going to be able to ride that wave and build. It'll be much easier to build a great outcome. But if you're an exceptional founder in a bad or slow market, there's only so much you can do, and you might just be stuck in a tar pit and not able to move forward. So being intentional about like the market and the problem space before like going all in.
All right. Thanks for that advice. Um, so we will wrap up. So what's next for Supademo? Where
A lot.
and where people, because I know you have a big release just yesterday, so I don't know when the episode will be released. It will be maybe already a thing of the past. But yeah, you had the big AI agent demo yesterday. So what's next after that? You should
Yeah,
have a
I
little
think,
bit of
I mean,
teasing.
we're continuing to become more and more agentic. So we see a future where both humans and agents can easily create demos at scale that are delightful, easy, customizable, malleable, and usable in all areas of the stack, inside, outside of the product. And yeah, we're pretty laser focused on like the core thesis of how do we make it more delightful and more easy for people to share out why their product matters. And yeah, we're still just getting started. 200,000 users is a lot, but it's actually not a lot. The grand
Yeah.
scheme of things with humans on Earth. So getting to 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, users that we empower. To me, that's inevitable. We just need to go out and execute.
Thank you, Joe. So where can people follow your journey and follow Supademo news on
Yeah, well, you can.
LinkedIn or X?
Yeah, LinkedIn and X is great. On LinkedIn, I'm just JHYLEE. So if you look up Joseph Lee, you'll find me, Joseph Lee Supademo. And on X, I'm JHY Lee 95.
Okay, I will add that to the show notes so people can follow you, and we can also check Supademo landing page and website, which is really nice in terms of explaining what the product does and all the video, of course, the demo, using Supademo to do the the product demo. So really nice. So you can check that. So thank you, Joe, for your time today. It was really interesting to hear about your journey and your take on how to build a company. So thanks for sharing your insights. And if you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to the Founders Cookbook. Thank you, Joe, and see you in the next episode.
All right. Thanks for having me.